Here in California, recapping the preliminary hearing in the fugitive ex-Marine murder case for Raymond McLeod. He's accused of killing his girlfriend, Krystal Mitchell, in a drunken rage in 2016. Mitchell was found beaten and strangled in an apartment in San Diego. During last week's preliminary hearing, the defense called Dr. Michael Baden a pathologist who opined in a general sense that injuries like the ones Mitchell sustained could be consistent with rough consensual sex. Take a listen.
Dr. Baden, you've had an opportunity to review the San Diego County Medical Examiner's autopsy report in this case?
Yes.
And you've also had an opportunity to be present in court while the medical examiner was testifying. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you agree, based on your training, experience, and expertise, that the cause of death in this case was strangulation?
I do.
Do you further agree that the other injuries in this case, particularly the vaginal and anal injuries, were not the cause of death?
I agree they were not the cause of death. They didn't cause or contribute to the death.
With respect to certain of the injuries that Dr. Shaber described, do you recall, just from a few minutes ago, about testifying about bruises and the age of bruises?
Yes.
And I had referenced, while I was asking her, I had referenced a bruise on the buttocks. Do you remember that?
Yes.
I asked her about how you could determine the age of that bruise, and I'm wondering what your response is. How do you determine whether that bruise on the buttocks was part of this incident?
Part of the what?
Part of this incident, the night in question.
Yeah, that would refer to the time when the injury occurred, the age of the injury. The age, looking at an injury gives an idea as to whether it's fresh or many days old, or weeks old sometimes. The best way to do it is by microscopic examination under the looking at the tissue under the microscope, as she did with the heart and lungs and other organs. Dr. Shaber did look at those under the microscope. The same thing can be done with skin injuries, and I agree with Dr. Shaber that one cannot tell exactly when the time of injury was, but you can tell approximately. You can tell the difference between a few days fresh, with 24 hours, a few days, or weeks old. So we get approximate time of injury, as Dr. Shaber described, depending on the inflammatory process where the healing process begins, and different cell types, white blood cells, red blood cells, change, as she said. And that doesn't give an exact time of death, but it can give time of death, an approximate time of death.
Now, as far as specifically, again, with respect to the bruising on the right buttock, is there any way for us to know when that injury, if you will, was inflicted?
I would have to see specifically what we're looking at, what we're discussing, but in my examining the body at the scene, the injuries in the body at the scene and at the autopsy, there were many of different ages apparent by the color changes, that there were color changes, some, and most of them yellowish, brownish, very small, not contributory to the death at all, but would indicate whether she was, whether she was injured many times or not when the injuries occurred. So in my opinion, looking at the general photographs, some of them look yellowish, some a little brownish, and that takes time to develop. The red blood cells start breaking apart and causing the yellow and brown appearance, which takes many days to develop sometimes. So my answer would be, I think that taking in all of the injuries that Dr. Shaver did mention, that most of them were of older than that incident, certainly not the incident at the time of death.
Right. And without running those additional tests that we referenced, the microscopic, whatever it is, there's no way to tell the age of the injuries.
Well, one can get an idea from the appearance. We're looking at the appearance on the skin. If somebody gets slapped on the skin or punched on the skin, one can see a discoloration right away that's bluish or reddish. It's more difficult in the buttock because an injury to the backside is often deeper in fatty tissue and takes days to come to the surface, whereas...
Still with us, attorney Bob Bianchi. Bob, let me ask you, when you have a battle of the experts like this at a preliminary hearing where one says the manner of death was homicide, the other expert says, no, it could have been rough consensual sex, isn't that enough for a court to say, yeah, there's probable cause in this case?
There's plenty for probable cause, and I have great respect for Dr. Michael Baden, and I know him and his wife very well. And this is the problem when we rely specifically on medical examiner testimony. As a former homicide prosecutor judge, I can't tell you how many times I had even those on my own team that came to different conclusions as to whether or not the manner of death was homicide, whether it was an accident, whether it was a medical event. Here's the thing. What just got proven to me beyond a reasonable doubt is that this woman was a victim of domestic abuse. This idea that she, quote unquote, wanted it, and this is something that she always dealt with, and so therefore there should be a defense here, is not what the law is. The law is whether or not the defendant acted with the appropriate mens rea or mental state in order to cause the death of another person, not whether she wanted it, not whether or not there are previous injuries. So what I saw in that testimony is how you can interpret things two different ways. What I saw there is a woman who was a victim of domestic abuse, and let's go to the common sense facts. Here's my summation as a former homicide prosecutor. On that night, she was in an argument in the bar. People had to intercede. This was something that was a fight, not consensual.